hardware store to see my old friend Bob. I said my roof it leaks, my rug's a mess, and my front door needs a new knob. I got squirrels in my attic, I got bats in my head. Well, Bob just leaned over the counter and he shook his head and said, "You need home repairs and solutions. Home repairs and solutions. They'll fix your windows, they'll fix your house, they'll even tell you how to get rid of a mouse. Home repairs and solutions."
It's 9 minutes after 10 o'clock on Friday morning, and that means it's time for Home Repairs and Solutions. We have 41 degrees, clear skies at AM 560 KWTO, and our show brought to you by Spring Mountain Air. And here's Mark and Mary. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Another beautiful day in the Ozarks.
Oh, man, I'll tell you what, the sun's shining. It's not real warm yet, but it's going to warm up nice. And
It is. You know, this weather pattern's working out okay because we're getting the cold in the early part, and toward the weekend is we're getting the nicer
Getting the
part.
nicer
so
parts.
getting the sunny and warmer. So
That's
you know,
right.
that works for most of us. Most of us work during the week and have the weekends off. So that's okay with me. I like it.
Me and you both.
I like it. Yeah, I do. One of the things I'm going to do this week is I'm going to attend an auction.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Down in Reed Spring. I'm going to go down there and kind of see what's happening.
Maybe buy something.
No, sir. No, I don't need any more stuff. I'm just going to go kind of see how it all goes. And
Yeah.
because I might have an auction one of these days. So I'm trying
There
to
you
get
go.
educated on how they all work and that kind of thing. What to expect and what have you.
You know, my Uncle Russell, he's an auctioneer. And back a few years, he don't do it very often anymore, but he used to do a lot of auctions. And it was always interesting to me because you go to an auction and a lot of times stuff sells at an auction for more than what you could go to the store and buy it. It's just amazing. People,
It is.
they get hyped up and they get to
They
bidding
do.
on stuff, and before you know it, you know, you've bought something, paid a little too much for it.
Yeah, you have. My husband and I used to go to quite a few auctions, but we always had a budget. We would always look at the items beforehand.
Sure.
Write
Yeah.
down what we're interested in and what our maximum price was. And, you know, sometimes we lose it by $1,
Yeah.
but that's okay.
Yeah.
So it's always a good idea if you're going to do something like that to kind of know ahead of time what you're willing to spend on something. Because like you said, you can get all tangled up in the, I'm not going to let that guy beat me. And
Oh, yeah.
then all of a sudden you're like, what in the world did I just do?
Yeah, I watched the Storage Wars deal on
Yeah, I've seen that a
TV.
few
You know, where
times,
they
yeah.
bid on those storage units and stuff, and it's really funny because they'll get to bidding against one another. Of course, I'm sure a lot of it's probably scripted and
Oh, I'm sure.
and everything, but it is interesting. You know, you can look at something but the old saying, you know, what's junk to one man is, you know, treasure to
Yeah.
another, and so. But you can, if you really watch what you're doing, you can pick up some good deals at auctions.
Yes, you certainly can. You
So-
certainly can. I thought I'd do that as opposed to trying to hit the E-Plex this weekend. Might be a little busy out there.
You know, I got a feeling that it will be. And, you know, we got a lot going on this weekend. We not only have, of course, the gun show. We have, I think, a big boat show out at Bass Pro. We've got the Home Builders show down at the Expo Center downtown,
Yep.
where I went to it last night and for
did
the
ya?
contractors event. Yes, I did.
Good. I heard they had over 200 vendors this year.
You know, I hadn't been for the last couple of years. You know, when the economy kind of slowed down and there wasn't a whole lot of building going on, the show kind of, you know, fell off just a little bit. But I was really impressed last night. A lot of really neat booths. Seen a lot of interesting stuff and seen a lot of people I hadn't seen for a long time. And my problem is when I go down there, I don't get to look at a lot because I see so many people that wants to stop and talk, you know, and because I was, you know, from years of being with Meeks and Hermans and different ones, I was always involved with the home show, and so I get a lot of people just wants to visit, but it's really neat. It's nice to see all these people I haven't seen for a long time.
You
Matter
bet.
of fact, I made a couple contacts that may be on the show here one of these days, and
That'd be
some
excellent.
local guys, and so, but it was really neat. A lot of great booths. Matter of fact, I didn't even see the whole show, and but it was a lot of fun. Had a good time.
Good, good. Well, I hope a lot of people go out this weekend. There's a lot of neat things to see out there, and I think it's $6
Yeah, something like
entry
that,
fee.
yeah.
Or I heard on the news this morning when I was watching the local weather before I came in to the office, if you take a canned good, I believe, you can get in for $5. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
I heard something about that.
I think that's
yeah.
correct. So if you want to, and I think it goes to Convoy of Hope, doesn't it? The
Really?
canned goods?
I
think
don't
so.
know. I'll have to check into that and see.
I believe
'cause,
that's what I heard. Someone can call and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's what I heard this morning. And so if you want to take a canned good to donate to Convoy of Hope, and then you can get in for $5 instead of $6.
There you go.
But I did hear there's over 200 vendors. They said that's the most they've had, I think, in about 3 years. So it's going to be a big show, a lot of things to see, a lot of things for people to do.
Yeah.
So,
And if you happen to be going to Las Vegas this next week, why they got the big National Home Builder Show going on out there.
people don't go to Las Vegas to go to a home show, Mark.
I would. Because I don't have no money to do anything else.
Well, maybe
Well,
they do.
no,
Maybe
you
they
know.
do.
It'd be if you was going to Vegas to have fun. It'd be nice to spend a day and walk through it. If you're into that kind of stuff.
That's true.
If you're
That's
not, don't go. Yeah,
true. There you go. There you go. Just save your airfare and go local.
and go local. That's right. There you go. That's for sure. We have a guest today.
We do have a guest. We have Chris with us. Chris, I struggle pronouncing your last name. What is your last name?
It's Youngblood.
Youngblood.
Kind of the German way of saying young blood, but
Okay.
Oh, okay.
ancestors didn't translate it whenever they came over to the States.
Well, that's okay. You can pronounce whatever you want to. It's your name.
Yeah.
Yeah, people have trouble with it since it starts with a J, but it sounds like young blood.
Okay.
But
Well, welcome to the show. We're glad to have you with us today.
well, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Just to let you folks know, and I'm sure we're going to get some calls on this today because this is an interesting subject a lot of
Yeah.
people struggle with. But Chris is a microbiologist and a chemist, and he owns Professional Service Company. And he can do lots of wonderful things for people. So one of the things that Chris does, I got to visit with Chris for quite a while and learned quite a bit about his business. But one of the questions I had for you that I thought of coming in this morning is you do a lot with mold.
It's an up and coming thing. It's a popular topic. It's pretty common and prevalent in this area.
It is. My question is it more frequent that you get mold this time of year or spring or fall, or does it matter? Is it just always there no matter what's going on with the weather?
Well, there's different problems we encounter at different times of the year. A call I get this time of year is the odor call, where people have had their crawl space vents closed since late fall, and moisture's building up in the crawl space if they haven't had a vapor barrier, and mold's starting to grow. And whenever mold grows in the presence of a food source and water, it produces a waste gas. It's like a musty smell that builds up. These houses built to modern houses are tighter than they were in the past, and so the moisture gets trapped, and you get this buildup of the microbial VOCs or VOCs that people complain about this time of year, and the condensation is occurring on the outer perimeter in the crawl space where the super damp and humid air from the crawl space contacts the frozen outer bandboard, and in particular the corners of the home, or the northwest corner is usually the coldest because the sun doesn't strike that area, and that's where a lot of times you'll get wood rot on the outer perimeter if people have historically closed their vents without a vapor barrier in place.
See, we have discussed that a lot on the show. Should they
Sure.
close the vents? Should they not close the vents? What should
Exactly.
you do?
Exactly.
And so now we have the expert here that
That's
will
right.
give you the answer to that. So you're saying without some sort of moisture barrier in your crawl space, you should not close your vents.
You
Typically.
can close the effectiveness of your vents go up as you add a vapor barrier. I think the building science manual says you need one vent for every 1,500 or 700 square feet, but with a vapor barrier it can be as much as 1,500 square feet. But the easiest way I tell people to monitor it is to put a temperature and humidity lead. They make wireless ones now that you can have it in the crawl space without having to go down there to check the humidity and temperature. But if you're getting over 60% humidity, should have more vents or dehumidification or some way to remove the humidity. If you're getting close to freezing, you should close some. So you don't freeze pipes. But with the way houses are built, well, in a crawl space home, there's heat from the ground as well as the ductwork many times is located in the crawl space. So it takes a lot of cold temperatures to freeze pipes. We're on the borderline of needing to have a lot of the vents closed right now with it being cold, but if the all the vents are closed in a crawl space and the ductwork's down there, you go in a crawl space this time of year, it'll still be really warm and kind of a sauna type atmosphere, and that's, but if the vapor barrier is down, you know, one or two vents partially opened, it's going to be enough. But if there's no vapor barrier, you need to have at least one vent open on each side of the house to kind of keep the crawl space from getting really warm, because the warmer air can hold a lot more humidity than the cooler air. So if you kind of keep the temperature in the crawl space down, it limits the level of humidity that can be there. But vapor barriers are effective, and we don't recommend them every time. If it's dry and there's already the appropriate sized gravel in the crawl space, 1 inch or larger size will aid in drying and prevent moisture from wicking up from the floor. What I see around here is a lot of the smaller size chat. I don't know if there was a deal on the small size pea gravel or something that the builders get, but they put that in the crawl spaces, and it kind of just wicks the moisture to the surface from the dirt, and then it doesn't really provide a lot of surface area for drying.
Okay.
Like the 1 inch rock
I
would.
just now learned something, because I know we'd always put the smaller stuff in the.
A lot of builders do that.
Yeah, and I'd never heard that. So we'll have to change that on our houses. So
I didn't either. I learned that when I was visiting with him earlier, and that's what I thought too, because you do see a lot of the little pea gravel stuff under there. So but the way you're telling me is you need rock with like an inch surface or so. Was that what you said?
Yeah, that way there can be space in between the rocks, and if the rocks are all packed together, it can kind of pull the moisture up, and through capillary action, a big scientific word, but if the rocks aren't touching, basically aren't allowing the water to pull the water up through capillary action, then if there's a deep enough level of rock, then you can get away without a vapor barrier. And but it seems like a lot of the houses just have wet dirt in the crawl space, and so that's a pretty easy call usually to recommend a vapor barrier in that situation to control the humidity and ultimately lower heating and cooling costs, because you can close more vents when you don't have to worry about ventilating all that the VOCs and the moisture out, if you can control that. Also just the vapor barrier isn't enough. Sometimes if there's sunken splash blocks or missing gutters, things like that, where there's a lot of hydraulic pressure on the foundation, if you get water in the crawl space, it can submerge the vapor barrier and be an even bigger mess. So you need to address the hydraulic pressure on the foundation at the same time if you're installing a vapor barrier, because you don't want to get into the mess of having to vacuum water off the top of the plastic or somehow get that out of there, because it can be a nightmare.
Now, when you're talking about vapor barrier and you're talking about a plastic type of lining, is there a certain thickness you need to put down? Because we've had that discussion too.
Sure,
Like, how thick of plastic do you need to put
4
down?
4 mil, 6 mil.
Yeah, what's the proper one to put down? And do you just put it on the floor or that part of it, or do you extend it up to the stem walls?
It depends on the application and the specific house and what you're trying to accomplish. If there's gravel in the crawl space already, and 4 mil is probably a little bit too thin to put in that, because as you crawl over the gravel, it's going to poke little holes in the 4 mil. I'd say 6 mil would be about is the most common one I recommend. It doesn't really. It's not easy to puncture a hole in it, and it stops. It is a moisture retarding vapor. It's not a vapor barrier. It doesn't stop all the moisture, because some can get around like at the edges, even if you lap it up on the foundation. Even if you were to actually attach it to the foundation and seal the seams, there's still a small amount of moisture and vapor that can escape out from under the plastic. So that's why it's called a vapor retarding barrier rather than just a vapor barrier. If you go up on the thickness, you might be able to get to a complete vapor barrier, but at 6 mil and 4 mil, they don't stop everything. But it slows it down enough to where the effectiveness of your existing ventilation is increased, and then it can effectively remove and lower the humidity to the recommended level, which ideally 50-55% is wonderful. You get too low, and you can start to get nosebleeds and discomfort, but above 60%, you get the condensation and And as there's problems in the crawl space, you can get corresponding issues with moisture in the living areas of the house, where you get condensation on windows that are cold when the humidity is high in the house, and you start getting fungus growing on the windowsills, and so that it's a different set of problems that occur in the summertime versus the winter. In the summertime, the condensation is going to be occurring on the cold water supply lines, the trunk line where the air conditioner is chilling the trunk. And then if humidity is elevated upstairs in the house, you also get condensation on the diffusers where the cold air is coming out of the vents. When the unit powers off, those are still extremely cold, and if the humidity is high enough, it will form condensation on those diffusers, and a lot of times that cladosporium and aerobsidium likes to grow on those diffusers in humid houses, where the HVAC system can't effectively remove all the humidity because there's so much laden in the crawl space or basement or whatever.
And we do get those calls periodically at Spring Mountain Air. Someone will call and especially this time of year, and they'll say, we don't know what's going on, but we have this weird odor. Seems like it's coming out the vents. So I'm wondering if that's not something where maybe they would need to contact you if they have a moisture issue underneath the house, or if they have something going on that's causing that odor, because most of the time we get it this time of year. And I would imagine it's because they've shut off their vents and have some moisture build up and that type of thing. But now I've been told that the ground here in Missouri, even though it gets cold outside, like in a crawl space, it can still stay, 40, 45 degrees or something. The ground doesn't really get that cold in a crawl space.
Yeah, the ground's actually keeping the crawl space warm.
And that's part of the issue, right? Because you have that warm and cold, and then you have the humidity issue, and then the mold and all that. So we have seen some ductwork underneath houses before, and that type of situation can also like rust out trunk lines and that type of thing if you've got all that humidity and moisture in there, because that metal trunk line at some point that can rust. So I would imagine if you had a moisture barrier, if you had some way to control that a little better, that would help that situation as well.
Definitely, the ductwork in the summertime is especially susceptible. A lot of houses I'll crawl under where there's no vapor barrier. I'll see water dripping off every section of the ductwork, and if there's insulation, that helps to keep the water from going through the dew point. So I've also seen where they don't insulate the boot and they insulate the line, so the boot is sweating, and so the boot sweats and fills up the insulation around the ductwork, and it sags down, and sometimes even pulls the duct loose, and further heating the crawl space.
Yes, exactly.
Or cooling it, depending on which season it's in. But
something we need to do in case folks do want to ask a question. We better give some numbers.
We better
out.
give some
we
numbers
haven't done
out.
that yet. That's right. 862-9977, 1-800-375-0056. Or if you want to send us a text.
We're high-tech now. You can
We're
text us.
high-tech. That's right. Why, you can do that at 417-838-3192. That text goes to my phone, and then we'll ask Chris a question or talk about whatever you want
Whatever
to.
you want to talk about today.
But we are talking about moisture in your crawl space. And,
that is a big issue for a lot of people in this area.
And, I'm the world's worst. I don't, I wait till the last minute to close my foundation vents. I've just, I know you were saying earlier about, and I'm a firm believer of this, houses are built a lot tighter.
They are.
We talk about that when we have Jeremy on the program.
Yes, they are. More energy efficient.
More
all
energy
that type
efficient.
Of thing, yeah.
We seal everything up so there's no air infiltration. We get it so tight that sometimes you have to have the extra ventilation systems, the ERVs and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, your old houses, old farmhouses and stuff that of course, back years ago, people
were drafty.
They were drafty. People heated with wood and stuff. But you very seldom ever had mold issues and stuff like that back then because there was so much air moving, and there just wasn't any place for it
That's
to
true.
grow.
And you didn't have a a lot of sickness either because you had all this fresh air coming through the walls and the windows and whatever. So,
but now we don't like to pay the utility companies any more than what we have to.
Don't like to open the windows. Don't like to do any of that
stuff.
You know,
and people don't do that. Nowadays it's amazing to me the amount of new houses that you see that don't even have screens on the windows because people never open them.
I know it. I know that's true.
And we do have a call. We got Tom down in Christian County. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I got a question for Mary.
Yes, sir.
My son lives in St. Louis, and he has a 2-story house. And I noticed on his air handler down on the lower level, he has a control lever that's marked winter and summer.
Uh-huh.
And so he can control the amount of air, the direction of the air going into the different levels of the house.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is that something that can be added to an existing system?
Is it a zone system that he has on that? He has a zone system? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, yeah. What it is, he has a lever. Like in a 2-story house, in the wintertime, you need more air coming into the lower floor than you do the upper floor.
That's a zone system. We do put those in. I'm not sure how that works on existing houses. That's something you probably have to talk to my son about. But we do install zone systems for people, and that is if you want to put more air in a different part of the house than the other part of the house and that type of thing.
Yeah. Outside from doing something like that, there's no way, and the person could just close vents and stuff like that to get the airflow changed a little bit.
No. Not necessarily. You don't. No. You can. Sometimes you can do a little bit of an air balance with your registers, but it's not really recommended. We don't do that. Mostly, you need your registers open because if your system is put in properly, there's a certain amount of air that needs to be pushed out of that system through those vents into your home. And so, if you shut one of those vents down or something, then you're creating a back pressure type system, and you don't want to do that. So. But we do have a thing that's called a zone system, and that's where there's different zones and stuff that can be put inside the ductwork that is worked a lot of times with the thermostats. Now you can set it up and create different air for different areas of your home that way.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thanks for your call today, Tom.
And you might be able to answer this, or this may be a question we need to ask Nathan, but you see this all the time. People shut the doors to rooms that's not being used, and they shut the vents off and everything. Are they really benefiting from doing that?
No.
Well, it can cause mold problems as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have a room that's colder than the rest.
Uh-huh.
The humidity's not being removed.
It's a problem.
Right.
Don't do that. Don't shut your doors. Don't shut your registers off. You'll create a lot of problems.
And don't put those trash bags on your wind turbines.
That's
Doggone
right.
It, so
we got to take a break.
We do. We'll be back here in just a few more minutes with more home repairs and solutions right after this.
Well, Bob just leaned over the counter and he shook his head and said, "You need home repairs and solutions. Home repairs and solutions. They'll fix your windows, they'll fix your house. They'll even tell you how to get rid of a mouse. Home repairs and solutions."
Here's news on the Ozarks News Network. A Cheney County judge has granted a change of venue for one of 5 people charged in the death of a couple from Willard. 44-year-old Tony Friend is charged with first-degree murder, armed criminal action, and felonious restraint in the deaths of Rusty and Becky Porter. Police say they've shut down a $500,000 marijuana growing operation in southwest Springfield. 32-year-old James Terrell is being held after officers found the marijuana growing in a home he was renting in the 1900 block of South Ferguson. The suspect claims he was out of town during the past month and wasn't aware of the pot being grown in the home. And a man from West Plains has admitted to child pornography charges. 26-year-old Scott Johnson had been charged with receiving child porn over the internet and possession of child pornography. For the Ozarks News Network, I'm Arlen Summers.
Well, I went down to the hardware store to see my old friend Bob. I said my roof it leaks, my rug's a mess, and my front door needs a new knob. I got squirrels in my attic, I got bats in my head. Well, Bob just leaned over the counter and he shook his head and said, You need home repairs and solutions.
Kansas City Royals fans, the Royals Caravan is coming to Springfield this Sunday at 4:30 p.m. at the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame. Come meet Hall of Famer Dennis Leonard, plus Royals pitchers Danny Duffy, Will Smith, and Bruce Chen. Slugger, the mascot, will be on hand, and the mobile unit from Fort Leonard Wood is coming with wounded warriors. The Royals will donate $1 to the USO for every thank you note sent to our troops during this event. It's the Royals Caravan this Sunday at 4:30 p.m. at the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame. Join the Kitchen Foundation for Eyes Disguise, the 9th annual Mardi Gras event, Saturday, February 2nd. Dance to music by members only. Indulge in the Cajun culinary delights of Louisiana chef Robert Rock Cannon. There'll be live and silent auctions, including a catered wine party and a dinner and lodging package at Big Cedar. It's great fun for a great cause. For more information and reservations, call 837-1500. Eyes Disguise is presented by Bobby Allison, Mercy, 417 Magazine, and KTXR.
Sunny skies, breezy and warmer for today, high of 54, clear breezy and not as cold tonight, low of 36. Sunny, breezy, and warm again tomorrow, high of 58 to start the weekend. Sunday will be sunny, but it will turn cooler, high of 46. Even colder on Monday with times of clouds and sun, high of 33. Sunny on Tuesday, the high 40. I'm AccuWeather's Jason Lord.
Currently 44 degrees.
Well, I went down to the hardware store to see my old friend Bob. I said my roof it leaks, my rug's a mess, and my front door needs a new knob. I got squirrels in my attic.
We have our good
I got bats in my head. Well, Bob just leaned over the counter.
We just like that song so well, we just get to hear a little bit of it, off and on. So, I know everybody just wants to hear me sing.
That's right. You're my favorite singer.
Oh, I thank you, Mary. Yeah. Oh, when pigs fly, ain't that the old saying?
Or something like that.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, something
Well,
like
we're
that,
back,
so.
but we have a caller on the line already.
We do.
We
We
have-
have Gloria here in Springfield. Go ahead, Gloria.
Good morning, Mary and gentlemen.
Good morning,
Good
Gloria.
And I didn't say Mary, gentlemen. Oh, that's my joke of the day. I got to tell you this. What you're talking about is very important. It's been a long time since this happened, but we lived down in Branson in an old rock house. Rock, and the walls were like a foot thick.
Uh-huh.
And back then, when they built that, they didn't think of gravel on top of the ground.
Well, no.
And I always opened the vents, and you didn't have that many vents back then.
Mm-hmm.
And we used to put a squirrel cage, the squirrel cage from a furnace?
Yes.
We used to put that down, and there we had a space where you could get from the main floor down into the basement part, which was not very deep. And we put that down in there to help circulate the air.
To move the air, yeah.
Well, this one summer, I always did it, but this one summer I was tied up and busy, and we didn't open it. So that winter, our floor started sinking about an inch. The nailing came loose in this net. Anyway, to make a long story short, we had to replace a lot of the flooring, and there was fungus down in there.
Mm-hmm.
And my husband, he got a fungus infection in his lungs. And he had to go to a specialist, and it took him a good 6 months to get over that.
Wow.
So it was really touch and go. So this is extremely important.
That's why we have Chris on the show today, Gloria.
That's right, Chris, and I like your name. That's my daughter's name, Chris.
Well, thank you. I like it
But
too.
anyway, I just wanted to say how important this is.
Well, we appreciate your call today.
Okie doke, Mary.
Thank you, Gloria.
And let's give out those numbers real quick in case somebody else wants to call, just
All
like
right.
Gloria did.
Okay.
862-9977, 1-800-375-0056, or you can send us a text at 417-838-3192.
And that leads into one of the questions that I had for you, Chris, is what are the most common types of molds that people run into, like under their crawl space or maybe inside? There's so many different kinds of mold and fungus and stuff, but what typically do you run into if someone has a wet crawl space and is having an issue down there with moisture?
Well, there's lots and lots of different kinds of mold. They theorize there's approximately 40 million different types of mold, and there's about 20 common types that we run into doing air testing and surface sampling in people's houses. In the crawl space, a lot of times it's from humidity problems. So you'll get the mid-level moisture-requiring organisms like Aspergillus penicillin or Rhizopus mucor growing on the floor joists out in the middle where humidity is an issue. And then on the perimeter, where if there's been condensation where the materials are saturated, you get the more of a high-level organism that requires more moisture to grow. The one the media refers to as black mold or Stachybotrys. Another one is Chetomium. They're what's called water damage indicators because these spores don't germinate unless they've been saturated for more than 5 days. So
is the treatment is the treatment different depending on the type of mold it is? Or is the treatment pretty much the same regardless of what type of mold it is?
I would say, each case is specific, and has its own solution. Whatever needs to happen to get the moisture levels in the wood below 15% and get the humidity below 55% and remove the visible mold. A lot of times whenever mold is grown on a surface and you remove it, you still have to do more than just vacuum off the surface or wipe the surface because the mold grows enzyme roots down into the wood. So sometimes it's helpful to reseal the wood if it required aggressive cleaning to get the mold off the surface. But you would look at the whole house and kind of form a plan for remedial action based on if it's a basement home or crawl space, if there's a walkout, or if we're going to have to, bring the material through the house, so there's a different plan, to kind of keep it from the mold that's there from being gotten into the air, and we don't want that to spread through the house. So it kind of depends on the layout of the house and the specific moisture problem and how much mold they have so it is different each time. There's not like a specific.
Okay, I didn't know if you have this kind of mold, you did this. If you have so it's different. It's all specified to the particular home or the problem.
Yeah, the type of mold is a little bit there. Stachybotrys, the black mold that grows in saturated moisture conditions. When it's wet, it doesn't really get airborne. It's approximately the same density comparatively as a penny falling out of the air. So this mold spore, if it was airborne, would fall right out of the air if it was wet. Once it gets dry, it can be airborne, wind disseminated, but it's usually just insect disseminated whenever it's wet. Like if they get it on their legs, they can crawl around and spread it. But now on the other hand, you get Cladosporium, which is it's the number one indoor airway allergen. It produces very large numbers of spores comparatively to the Stachybotrys, but it doesn't have nearly as much toxin. But it's a respirable size spore that can get in the lungs, and it can cause an immune response and allergic response. So it's the one that can grow on the registers, and it's very common. So in that situation, it can get airborne more easily. So you want to make sure that there's containment zones. The right air currents moving through a property, before you start removing or disturbing it. One thing I can say about it, that's kind of across all of the mold types is that we focus on physical removal of the mold rather than, spraying it with something or adding more chemicals to the situation, or, bleach especially will make it will add moisture as well as, hyperchloride is a toxin, and so it's going to add toxin and not really remove the spore. It's just going to make the spore clear and look like it's not there, but microscopically it's still there.
Yeah.
And so now it's got the toxins as well as the hyperchloride associated. So it's even potentially more of a more of an allergen. Yeah. And then you also have to worry about what chemicals then you can mix with that, because there's bad mixes that can occur.
Oh, sure.
Oh, yeah.
We have a caller here. I hate to interrupt you, but we've got Victor holding on the line. We lost him. Sorry about that, Victor. Guess we put him on hold too long.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. If you want to call back, Victor, we'll get you right on. But don't use bleach to wipe away mold because you really haven't done anything but change the color, basically.
Well, if they're just spraying it, wiping it away might be, they're physically removing it, doing that. but I would say use a product that doesn't change the color. If they're going to try to do it themselves, there's other products like quaternary ammonia that would be better than bleach. But it's important to vacuum the spores off the surface before you start doing wiping, because if you start spraying out, and there's a lot of, so each spore, by the time you can see it, has about 150 million or 150,000 spores in the colony before you can see it. So if you imagine you're looking at a mat of fungus and you're thinking about cleaning it up, it really needs to be vacuumed first before you damp, disinfect it, wipe it, because just spraying on it is going to liberate lots of spores into the air. And if they're trying to do it themselves, it's unlikely they've set up a containment zone and controlled the air currents, and so then that stuff might get sucked into a return air vent and get distributed to the system, or get stuck in the A coil, and then you start getting growth on the A coil whenever the cooling season starts. And or if the other common one we see is the clogging of the condensation drain pan, and then that overflows and gets the materials around the HVAC unit wet, and if there's a corresponding groundwater problem and already a little bit of mold kind of started in the crawl space, it compounds that and makes it even worse. And then
so one of the things that you can do for folks is you can come in and you do air quality testing. And what all does that tell somebody? If you come in or how would someone know if they needed air quality testing done in their home?
Well, we start off, looking at the house, the exterior, the building envelope, to see where it may have been compromised or being, moisture, hydraulic pressure on the foundation. We look at the geology of the area where the groundwater may be flowing, and we also check the gutters and see where problem points might be from the exterior inspection. And so from that and doing visual inspection and moisture testing in the crawl space, kind of put together a recommendation for what sort of sampling would be helpful to find out what the recommendations would be. So sometimes we don't do any sampling. If we come and see that there's a major mat of fungus in the crawl space and there's mold everywhere upstairs, I mean, a lot of times it's so bad that you don't even necessarily need to sample. That you need to start with getting the moisture under control and removing stuff, and then maybe do a round of sampling to see if there's more to do, or if the ductwork, in that situation, the ductwork would normally be cleaned or replaced. But but sampling is helpful. Like say in a real estate transaction where people want to know if a house is clean, you don't see anything during the visual inspection, and sometimes it's in that case you can take a sample outside and compare it to an inside sample. If you're wanting to clear a property, the things I look for are for there to be no visible mold, no elevated moisture, and no elevated humidity, and no elevated air counts. Now, say another time where their sampling would be beneficial would be, say, you go in the crawl space and there's mold in a couple of corners of the crawl space, and maybe on the exterior of the ductwork and on some of the pipes, like the cold water supply line. So it's not, everywhere, but you don't see a lot of visible mold in the living areas, but you kind of want to know whether ductwork cleaning is going to be needed, or if they should, get out immediately or anything like that. In that situation, it'd be helpful to see if what's going on in the crawl space has affected the breathing air of the house by doing an air sample upstairs. And these are time tests that run for a known amount of time and a known volume of air, so then we can calculate the number of spores in the air per cubic meter and compare that to what is outside. And if there's certain spore types we look for, the water damage indicators, and in general to see whether the spores are higher than outside.
So you do that for people that are looking to maybe purchase an existing home, or you can do it for people that are living in their home. It doesn't matter. I mean, you can help anybody with whatever their situation is.
And just want to make sure that the air they're breathing inside their home is safe.
Right.
Yeah.
The other thing that I think is interesting is that you actually come in, and if you find mold or if you need to take a sample or something, you have a lab right here in Springfield.
Yeah, we usually try to produce the results and report within 24 hours, because with these situations, they're not wanting to wait 5 days and, sit around. It's either a real estate transaction or there's a health effect or an odor, and people want, to know what's going on and correct it. And it is important because it is important to get something moving quickly, because mold can grow basically overnight. It can grow pretty quickly. And so if the longer you just sit on a moisture problem, you can get, with just in a few days, with water damage cleanups too, where somebody's had a pipe break. That's why they come in immediately and start getting the humidity and moisture levels changing, because the mold doesn't like stasis. It likes to stay the same temperature and humidity, and that's whenever it thrives. And so, if you can start to get the moisture to lower, even though the moisture is still high enough to produce, or still high enough for them to thrive in, they don't do well whenever it's changing, because even though the moisture levels, say, would be even higher than 15%, the mold can't germinate whenever the conditions aren't stable.
Okay.
So even if you can't get the thing dried out immediately, it's just important to get it started and get the levels not staying just saturated or high in humidity.
So changing the humidity levels, if you have a mold situation, will help prevent the mold from growing as quickly as if it was stable and your humidity level was high or whatever. I didn't realize that, because I just figured it grew no matter what. I didn't realize it didn't like the change in humidity or that type of thing.
Well, the Stachybotrys, the black mold, it requires 5 days of saturated conditions in the material it's growing in. These other kinds, the mid-level, I call them mid-level moisture-requiring organisms, like Aspergillus penicillin, Cladosporium, Eulycladium, and Rhizopus mucor, those can grow anywhere above 15% moisture in the material they're growing on. But they require a number of days to get there. Like the Stachybotrys requires 5 days of saturated. So if you started drying that material, more spores couldn't germinate.
I see.
If it starts to get below saturation. And then the next round of organisms wouldn't really be able to get a foothold either, because you're moving the moisture. Even though it's high enough to support the growth, if it's moving, it's better, and it helps for them to not be able to germinate and grow as easily.
So what is the mold you typically see like in a stand-up shower? These plastic surround showers and all that kind of stuff. If you don't clean them pretty regularly or wipe them down when you use them, you can kind of get mold and stuff starting to grow in there. Is that what typically is that kind of mold? Is that a dangerous type mold, or can you just clean it, or what should you do with that? You'll see it it'll get in the shower doors, the bottom of the shower doors and that type of thing.
I would say Arabicidium is a real common one that grows in that situation, as well as Cladosporium and Rhizopus. So it's maybe because they haven't, left the fan on long enough as they, to dry out the shower. If they just kind of have the humidity stay in there too long or don't clean it, it's gonna, like I said, it likes the stasis, and the shower area just kind of stays damp and humid a lot of the time. So it won't be as much of an issue as if they were to dry the bathroom out in between showers.
So if you have a fan in your bathroom, like a vent fan or whatever, then it's a good idea to run that.
Absolutely.
Like if you use a shower a lot or something, then that will help keep that dry and keep that from happening.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of people don't have them at all, or
I know, they don't
use them,
yeah,
or use them but not enough, and don't, and they end up leaving humidity in the shower and kind of just shut the door and go to work. And
I see.
Probably be more helpful to just leave the door open.
The shower door you're talking about, leave it open?
Well, the door to the bathroom.
And the door to the bathroom, okay.
And that'll let the HVAC kind of move air through the bathroom and dry it out. It could be, if they're closing the shower curtain, that a lot of that humidity and moisture is getting trapped in the shower area and not able to be exhausted by the fan or the HVAC system that's supplying the room.
Because you see that on shower curtains too.
Oh yeah. You probably go to my house right now and see it. More than likely.
Yeah, well, I hate shower curtains. I hate shower doors. I just like everything open. I don't like doors. I don't like any of that stuff.
I'm the same way, and it seems like most all the houses we lived in, we've had shower doors. I hate to clean them. It's my job.
I hate shower doors.
It's my job at my house to clean the showers and stuff. And so in our house right now, we have shower curtain. We buy the cheap shower curtains
And then-
throw them away.
Yep, and throw them away and buy the next cheap
Throw them
one.
away and buy the
Yep.
next, $2 or $3 one.
There you go.
And I solved that problem.
There you
I
go.
do that too. This last one I bought was microbial resistant, and it hasn't had anything grow on it. And it's been over a year, so I'm pretty happy.
Well,
with
yeah.
You can buy
no
them that are
doubt.
microbial resistant.
that. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know
found one
that.
at
Wow.
Walmart.
All of you with shower curtains, look for a
go.
microbial resistant shower curtain.
That's right.
That'll help.
Yeah.
Chris, we're going to run out of time, and what we haven't done is we haven't given out your information where if people have one of these issues, if they have a mold issue, if they have a wet crawl space, an odor, just want to make sure that quality of the air in their home is safe. How do they get a hold of you?
Well, they can call the office at 417-889-2612. And they could also, my mobile is 425-0423. And we do a whole home inspection that it's a crawl space, attic, the whole house and exterior for $250, and samples are $45 each if we need to collect mold samples, but we'd talk about that before we collected them. And but we do a limited scope inspection, say of a crawl space only, or say there's a bathroom that has a problem. For $150, we'll do a limited scope inspection of a problem area. And
What I think is so cool, though, is if you do find a problem and if you do find some mold and you take it back and you need to test it to see for sure what it is or what you need to do to preventive type thing, that is right here in Springfield. I mean, you do that right here and you can get back to people right away. You don't, you're
Yes,
not
ma'am.
sending it off and hoping that they get it and then hoping that they test it and hoping they send it back, all that. So I had no idea until I met you that kind of service was even here in Springfield. So I think that would be real helpful for folks, especially if they're having an odor problem or maybe a health issue they're not real sure about with, bad air or whatever. They can get this, have Chris come out, do an air quality sample, find out what's going on in your home, and then he can give you a solution very, very quickly.
One of
So
the
I think
things
that's important.
mold is just one aspect of the environmental and what our company does. We handle radon and lead and other issues. We do phase 1 environmental audits. And so
Is that mostly for commercial, though, the phase
the
1
phase
environmental?
ones, yeah, it's
Yeah.
a commercial property inspection whenever there's, they're concerned about the level of environmental risk and the bank doesn't want to end up losing the property over some
Sure.
hidden issue, and
Like
sort of protects
underground
them.
gas tanks or something from a gas
Yeah.
station 100 years ago on the same.
Right, and we
place.
researched the history of the property back to its initial use, like so whenever it was farmland or timber, so back to before it could have had an environmental issue, and that protects the banks and gives them a protection in the future. If there is something found later, then there'll be brownfields program will help clean up if there's some oil or gas found later on the project. But yeah, radon and lead, but mold is definitely the one that's in the news and the
It
up and
is.
coming. But I try to remind people. People try to say, "Oh, it's the mold man." I'm like, "No, I'm an environmental guy. I'm not a
The mold man.
mold guy."
The mold man.
It's the mold man.
Yeah.
No, he's an environment. He does much more than just mold remediation. And so you touched on radon. Is radon a big issue in this area?
It's not a extremely big issue here. It's it's a product of a breakdown of organic material. Sometimes if builders put a lot of stumps or fill, organic fill underneath a site, it might, and there's, vapor barriers help with controlling radon to some degree. But it's a deal where, you just need to test, and there's a recommended level, and it's
So how
not
do you know
usually
if you have a
exceeded
radon issue? I mean, how would you even know?
by running a test. You set a canister out, and it collects the radioactive particles basically, and they analyze it and tell you the level
see.
in the basement.
Okay. All right. Well, we're out of time already, but
Yes,
I
we
want to
are.
thank you, Chris, for being on the show today.
Thanks
I learned
for having me.
Absolutely. I learned so much from you, and I think there's a lot of folks out there that could probably use your services, and you could help a lot of people out there. So I appreciate you being on.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Great having you. Anything special going on this weekend?
No.
Okay. That's good.
Easy weekend.
That's good.
Enjoy the weather.
Yep.
Well, this is Home Repairs and Solutions. We're known as the Buck and Roy, me and Mary, of Ozarks Radio here. But we're here with you every Friday morning from 10 to 11 right here on AM 560 KWTO.
Home repairs and solutions. They'll fix your windows, they'll fix your house. They'll even tell you how to get rid of a mouse. Home Repairs and Solutions.